If my recollection serves me, you started to do some things on the side.
Right.
Is that okay to talk
That's
about
definitely.
in public?
Well, yeah, it wasn't as much on the side as it was, in the entrepreneurship community.
Sure,
We call
sure.
it moonlighting. I mean, it was at night. It was after hours. It was when I was done with my other job and maybe down and out on my luck and feeling down and discouraged. I went home and looked for satisfaction in that professional light in other forms, and that's what I did.
So how did that kind of come to the top? The first opportunity that you went for, how did you hear
Well,
about that?
I had tried a couple of things, and I remember even while I was working there, I wanted to do something online-based, something that maybe didn't require a brick and mortar storefront or a building with my company name on it. I wanted to do something online. We tried. I did, and I enlisted some help of different projects as far as domain purchasing and website development and that kind of stuff. So it was me.
You figured out how to do that yourself?
Yeah, and then I ended up figuring out how to do it myself.
Website and whatnot.
Right. Made a couple websites. I was trying to use my marketing degree and background, and I wanted to create a new marketing platform for leasing properties in Jonesboro. And so I made a website, got a couple customers. Wasn't making any money, but I was trying to get it up and rolling.
So that was your first.
That was kind of the first thing I started doing.
Moonlighting venture.
And it started to fizzle out real quick,
So you were trying to get like an apartment complex to subscribe to you and then drive.
And then drive traffic because, it's not news to anyone else around here. But if you're new to town and you're looking for a place to lease or rent, there aren't really many options as far as finding that stuff.
I've experienced that.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you go to the Jonesboro Sun or you go to Craigslist or something like that. So we wanted to kind of make something like that, but it wasn't received very well, and maybe I didn't try hard enough or long enough. But
how long did that go on?
A couple months. I mean, it didn't take me long to figure out. A couple months of no money. That was all I needed.
And
So from there, did that sort of give you the idea? Did you come up with another idea during that time, or was it after that?
I thought, well, the leasing industry was a little different because either you've got a couple of really big apartment complexes that already had their own websites and stuff and advertising their own methods, and then you had that, and then you had the landlord that had one or two properties, and there were a lot of those, a lot of small fish and a couple of big fish, and I couldn't land the big fish, and the small fish were small, and you can't have a good residual income off of a bunch of little people. I don't want to say little people, but in regard to that. So I thought, what's a similar marketing model that is not that type of clientele? I thought, well, at the time in 2008, there really wasn't certain websites that there are now. And so we made this website called JonesboroMenus.com, and I wanted to make this like a one-stop shop to where you could download menus of every restaurant in town.
Okay.
You could download specials. You could have a one-click to deliver, or one-click to place an order, or make a reservation. And so I really wanted this little traffic hub for Jonesboro eateries, to where you had a lot of information in one spot. But again,
so both those ideas were kind of web hubs for different audience. Each one was for a different type of market, an audience. B2B or B2C or whatnot, type of website.
And it was more just, like I said, getting back to my marketing roots, I basically wanted to be a third-party marketer for these businesses. Sure. And that's what it would have been, a subscription-based marketing program. Mm-hmm. And again, it was before, certain websites now, Urban Spoon and Groupon and all this other stuff that have that kind of thing. It was before that, so I thought it was a good idea, but again, it just didn't pan out. It fizzled out. So that one kind of flopped too.
About the same amount of time, a couple of months?
Yeah, about the same amount of time. And again, I mean, it may have been a good idea. It may have been something that I should have tried a little harder or tried something different, but it just, for whatever reason, didn't work.
Did the first apartment lease or rental lease site and then the menu download site, were those more or less consecutive? I mean,
yeah, and they were even overlapped a little bit. Because
so you were thinking about starting your own thing, thinking in terms of web hubs, and third-party marketing,
Right.
and who would be
Right.
good. The other good as the other two parties, I guess.
Right,
Fort
right,
Market
right.
and Jonesboro. Okay.
And I guess the
You're
next
still at the telecommunications.
still at the telecommunications place. And I mean, those businesses didn't officially die for a while. They hung on for dear life for a little bit, but they never, it never made it out.
Yeah.
But right around the time I was in the discovery mode of figuring out, okay, this ain't working. Maybe a business on my own isn't in the cards for me. I kind of came across another opportunity that kind of blossomed into something that ended up working for a little bit.
Okay.
I came into contact, and I think it may have been whenever I was promoting one of my other deals, one of my other websites. I came into contact with a business owner who owned some warehouses here locally.
All right.
And
So just sort of by
yeah,
network, by
Mhm.
during your business development type activities, you were meeting some people that were potential customers, and something else popped up.
sure. And so I came across this local business owner who owned a couple of warehouses here in Jonesboro area. And at the time, given the economy and what was going on with certain industrial or manufacturing businesses, there was a lot of inventory liquidation.
Pent up.
Yeah, and so whether it be they were going out of business or whatever, we had a lot of stuff in warehouses that just needed liquidated. And he said, "Can you help me with this?" And I thought, well, we can figure something out.
So this sort of came up in
Yeah, it just came up
casual
in conversation.
by-
He kind of thought,
right.
okay, well here's a
enterprising
techie guy
young
or whatever.
man. Sure. All right.
And he was older generation, and he needed help, and he asked me. I said, sure, we can figure something out. And so we started looking on some websites, on like liquidation websites and wholesale websites, and basically I was helping him with this inventory. And I thought, well, maybe this is it's kind of a business idea. And I thought, well, let me get in touch with a couple of other businesses here in town and see if they'd be interested. Sure enough, even clothing stores and other local smaller businesses that weren't necessarily warehousing, they had back stock or old inventory or stuff that they could in their back room that they wanted liquidized and could do more with the money they could get out of that as opposed to holding it on.
Now, were these generally locally owned businesses you're dealing with, or were some of them chains as well?
Mostly locally owned. I never really broke through with a chain.
Did this involve another website that you created, or was this?
This eventually led to a website and a business, and it was a business called eSold online here in Jonesboro.
eSold evolved from those more informal relationships. Is
So
that right?
what happened is, as I was selling for these big businesses, I needed more than just my apartment or bedroom to do work in. So I thought, well, I'm gonna have to get a workspace somewhere. I can't just keep doing this in my kitchen. That's where I started off first. Taking pictures at the site. I helped liquidate a couple of restaurants that went out of business here locally, and so they had their stuff in storage, so I could go out there and take pictures and come home and put it online, and so that worked for a while, but I needed more space, and so I thought I could either get a warehouse office space, or I can get a business that actually has a front door and a sign and let people come to me and be a more of a on-the-road brick and mortar store. And so that's what it turned into. And so we came up with eSold, and basically it was just a way you could electronically sell your merchandise and maybe a spin-off of certain names of pre-existing businesses.
Okay.
But we started selling not only to liquidating websites, but also on eBay for the smaller type of people, and we just started selling online.
And how were you developing your customers? Were you just going around door to door, so to speak?
I mean, anything you could do, door to door, flyers on businesses, flyers on cars, ads
so you're
online,
getting calls from people based
ads
on
in the newspaper, ads anywhere I could, anything that was cheap.
Okay.
We were advertising that way.
Right. And you were getting people.
Yeah, I mean,
calling
again,
from that.
started off really slow, but that one, since I'd already had a couple of bigger players pre-existing, it allowed me to float the business until I started getting more marketing to the masses.
So you having a more established customer right off the bat sort of enabled you to.
It gave us credibility.
Okay.
We had credibility from the main customer or the bigger customers, but also it floated us financially until I figured out what we were going to do.
And how did you know when you were ready to go from your apartment to having a store? Was it just sort of like, I can't do this, I physically can't do this out of my apartment
Necessity.
anymore?
Yeah, it was necessity. I had to have more room. I had to have a space to do something, and either I could save a little money and be in a warehouse type situation somewhere in a off the beaten path, or we could pay a little bit more and put a sign on the front and make a business out of it.
Now, your sales job
Was gone at this point.
Okay, so let's get back to that. So
Right.
what?
About the time whenever I was filling up my apartment and needed more space, that's about the time I got the same idea of, I'm done with this other thing because it's not making me any money, and I'm making a little money here. I'm miserable here, but I'm happier here. I'm actually fulfilling whatever.
Your
Yeah,
entrepreneurial
my
spirit.
entrepreneurial desire was getting fulfilled that way, and so. Going back to what you referenced earlier, no wife, no kids, no mortgage. It was still low risk for me at the time, and so I quit the job and just started trying to support myself in whatever other means I could do.